Welcome back here to HGC North America, where we just saw Octalysis open that door and take us straight to Narnia with all kinds of crazy picks there. But we are back. We've got an action-packed evening for you, as it's going to be Team Freedom versus HeroesHearth, our number 3 team, could be number 2 team when all things are said and done. But our number 1 team of HeroesHearth trying to win 1 game to clinch their spot at BlizzCon.
I think they have what it takes. I do think that this is going to be the moment, the series where we get the breaking point. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for Team Freedom to possibly get the upset here, but HeroesHearth Esports to get undefeated in a series, that is a statement that is really hard to hold true no matter who their opponent is. They have a very solid understanding, team fighting wise, macro wise. The only way I feel like that is out of their reach if it's somehow the communication behind, HBU on the front lines and people like Crowan in that follow-up somehow is not there for the 1-2 punch that we know them to always get with that synergy.
Well, let's take a look at the standings so we can further break this down for you, with HeroesHearth only dropping that 1 series in that best of 5 versus Tempo Storm. So clearly something that you can be okay with. Tempo Storm and Team Freedom locked into that 9-3 spot, but the map advantage in favor of Tempo Storm. Octalysis, they're continuing their climb to try and come up with so much focus at the top end here. It's going to be just all-star packed for HeroesHearth. And we already know the story for HeroesHearth. Arthalon retired. They're working through some subs. Their sub this weekend will be Homicidal, somebody that they've subbed with before, somebody that they bring in for practice occasionally when somebody needed to step out in the past. So he's a sub for this weekend, somebody they're familiar with, fits into several roles, and we'll see how it unfolds. McIntyre, a lot of flexibility in his past. Homicidal, primarily an off-lane player, but has been known to flex into that range role. So there are some familiarities for HeroesHearth for this series.
Yeah, there are some things for them to be able to rely on, but, Team Freedom doesn't have maybe those same circumstances, doesn't have the Homicidal to be working on, and even though it is a moment of comfort, you would like to think that a team at the 3rd place slot might have the opportunity to get that upper hand, and that's going to be a true test here of today. But I think it goes even more so than that. If Team Freedom is able to get that victory, I would not walk away from the series and going like that is because that HeroesHearth are trying to find themselves. It is very much the level of approach and play from Team Freedom, whether or not we get that slow macro playstyle or whether or not they're really, kind of forcing their hand upon the opponent what they want to make happen. And if their early game strategies fall apart, they don't fall apart with them.
Well, we're going to see how this unfolds. We saw Team Freedom yesterday. We're going to hear from them again today. It's going to be Yoda and Ishbu talking about our series for right now.
After our finish at the Western Clash, I think we had a pretty good shot at competing with HeroesHearth for the top spot in NA. However, their finishes in NA have been extremely strong, so I think this match will be a good indicator of who's the top dog. I think one advantage we'll have this weekend is that HeroesHearth will be playing with a substitute. Obviously, they recently had a roster departure, so they're doing some tryouts and they haven't really solidified everything. One thing we could capitalize on could potentially be their lack of synergy with the new player. HeroesHearth is a really strong team. Obviously, they have a really, really good record in NA, so it's going to be a tough match whether we win or lose.
Team Freedom's kind of been all over the place a bit recently. They had a really good run at Western Clash, but then they kind of fell almost immediately, I believe, losing to Endemic. And now they're kind of, their motivation is a bit questionable right now. I just knowing the players, I don't necessarily know where their heads are at right now, but I think ultimately they're not exactly, I think they're a less scary team than Octalysis. Mostly just because I feel like Octalysis was a team on the rise, whereas I feel like Freedom's a team that's kind of stagnating at this point.
Ishbu wondering about motivation for Team Freedom, but when we heard from Collusion at the end of the day yesterday, so they felt comfortable and confident in their win. Yoda says that they're still competing to show who's the top dog, so those are words of confidence from Team Freedom, but it's been a mixed bag. The record looks good, but the wins and losses in a lot of the series, it's hit or miss, sometimes hot and cold in their games.
And if I was to fall on maybe one side of that coin, I'm not going to lie, I fall more on the side of Ishbu. Stagnation. It does feel like there has been that kind of, hitting breaking point for Team Freedom. And normally a breaking point comes with an immediate, kind of success or kind of downfall afterwards. But I guess probably unfair to call it that, but it's more of a plateau, if you will. And they haven't found that way to truly further themselves as a roster. You got bits and glimpses of it, but the minute it felt like it had been pushed and kind of threatened whatsoever, the confidence within that playstyle reverted, and then therefore they go back to their roots. And their roots got them here in the first place, but their roots also have stopped them from being that international performer, being that dominant team in North America. They pretty much feel like they are.
They rediscovered themselves through the middle part of part 1, went to Western Clash. And as you said, that LFM series seems to be that linchpin where it's like, okay, things aren't as good as we thought that they were. And so we've had that mixed results. When they look good, make no mistake about it, they look like a potential number 2 team that could go to BlizzCon. But when they look not so good, you kind of wonder, can the teams like Octalysis and Tempo Storm clinch that spot towards BlizzCon and overtake Team Freedom? And those are questions that Team Freedom will be answering. They win here, they solidify one of those top 2 spots. They lose here, they potentially fall to Octalysis next week. And instead of coming in as a top 2 or 3 seed, might be coming in that number 4 spot.
Yeah, and another thing now, kind of considering this matchup itself, one thing that I hadn't thought about up until this, now that Toronto's in the meta, if HeroesHearth Esports has that level of synergy that we get from them in the past with the default kit, that's going to be a problem for the rest of North America, and they're going to have to figure out how to handle BBJ over on that hero or whoever HeroesHearth end up selecting for that here. As we take a look at the Battlegrounds, Team Freedom, in fact, is going to be taking us to the Sky Temple, where we get bans out from HeroesHearth Esports towards the Inferno Shrines and ridding the Braxis here from Freedom. But does that make sense? You know, with the Tronda and the kill potential, if we see that, you know, all-in playstyle from them, Toronto's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I was going to follow up on that because the one thing that we see that HeroesHearth has traditionally done better than anybody, we all know wombo combos exist. You can always blow people up with certain combos of heroics, but they've traditionally done it, and when they've been at their best, they've done it off just basic abilities, those kits that you talk about, and getting the lockdown and the CC, getting the mark, getting that all-in capabilities on one hero, but continuing the follow-up, even on short cooldown heroics like we saw a few weeks ago on the Johanna, Blessed Shield, the Lurking Arm from Stukov with the low blow and a Cursed Bullet. It's just small, short cooldowns that allow them to excel. Some of that was around heroics, some of it not. And when they are around heroics, they're short heroics. So they're always fully loaded, ready to go, one in the chamber. And they said, you know what, you step forward, we can give it to you. And finding that synergy is something they got to do. For Team Freedom, they have to find their meta. It's the synergy within their meta to figure out who they want to be from here on out. You can't just be all in on macro.
And being on Sky Temple, I think it's going to be a great place of comfort to be able to maybe have that macro playstyle and still win against a team as formidable as HeroesHearth Esports, purely based on the functionality of the Battleground objective and capability to be able to snowball that around. I will say, though, if we do get that more rotational Greymane pickup, though it's not as common on Sky Temple, I'll be very, very concerned as we get the bans kicking off. And HeroesHearth Esports waste no time to pick up that Tronda.
Both of these teams, and we know more on the side of Collusion, can run into that Kerosene style. It goes with the Greymane, does pair for some of that early chip damage, getting on there, cycling back, or using the temples to escalate the process by coming in early. We'll see if they can do that. Reminder, as you can see on the ticker down below, I'm sure you've seen the little highlight package we have there. Tickets available if you want to come to opening week and maybe come early if you're going to BlizzCon. Kind of double dip there. It's a lot of fun at the Blizzard Arena in Burbank. Tickets available if you want to attend that. That is separate from BlizzCon.
Interesting selection here with a very high priority into the Phoenix. Coming out from Team Freedom in their 1-2. Battleground-wise, can't look at that as a major argument for it here. And it's not like Tronda stands out as a major maybe weakness to that end. Look at this, J-How. HeroesHearth Esports double down on the double support, pick up the Whitemane hybrid. And now that we've gotten this from 2 different teams, I'm wondering if it's going to be the future here of North America, while Tronda is, you know, I think it's fair to say, you know, first pick worthy, at least here at this point in time.
Yeah, she's pretty good.
She's kind of good. She's good enough that even the guy who loves to hate her has a hard time saying anything negative about her.
The interesting thing for me was when we went into Western Clash and we got to talk to all the teams, Team Freedom was the team that they openly said, we think we're a team that runs double support better than anybody. And we all just kind of looked at each other like, what? Like, what do you mean double support? Like, nobody's running. They at times would run the Brightwing Uther. That was twice.
Yeah.
But it's just like in the traditional sense, we're like, what are they talking about? They're very high on. They were high on Tassadar at the time, but I don't think anybody was considering that a support. If we do get into that realm, it's starting to show itself. The Deckard banned out, so we see the Anubrak, we see the Hanzo, potentially a Kerosene behind that.
Really interesting draft priority, though, at all sides here for Team Freedom. I do want to see the Kharazim in the last slot for Collusion, now knowing that we do have the Anu Barak for that damage output capabilities. Also, Cleansing Touch post-16, though you rarely on Sky Temple find yourself on even footing once you get to that state of the game, but to deal with the Tyrande kill potential with the Dahaka already picked up by HeroesHearth. And we do end up getting the Greymane still here on Sky Temple, but it's not in the hands of Freedom. In fact, here for HeroesHearth Esports.
This is a map where I'd say this is probably the most forgiving map right now for Greymane playstyle. You look at Infernal Shrines, you look at Battlefield of Eternity, maps where he can potentially excel on when you're winning. If you lose an objective on those maps, the defense would be much tougher. So going into this style makes more sense on this battleground. See how it plays out.
It also has a little bit more synergy than maybe I'd given credit at first thought now that Tyrande's coming in, because she does function in such a unique manner and provide so much kill potential from the support role, which, as I've talked about, certain elements don't exist very commonly within those roles, like wave clear within warriors, kill potential within supports. You mix that with a Greymane Cursed Bullet, you know, we already knew a Nubrak squishy. Tyrande's going to make that a problem. Cursed Bullet just pretty much makes everyone, you know, an easy kill target.
Cleanse, 60-second cooldown, Cursed Bullet, half that at 30 seconds. I mentioned the combo that they used, Johanna Cursed Bullet. They used that with a Stukov.
Yeah.
This time you get the Blessed Shield, Tyrande Lunar Flare. You're making use of a short cooldown heroic with the Blessed Shield, only 60 seconds, into the Lunar Flare, into that Cursed Bullet. You mark them up, and Greymane in that Worgen form will just shred them to pieces. Collusion's got his work cut out for him.
Yeah, and then normally you'd be like, well, you know, first of all, one thing to consider, if that happens to a Hanzo, you have to Ancestral at about 75% HP. A new Barak, you can get a little bit lower, about the 50% threshold, but Phoenix, once the shielding's touched, or maybe even high into the shielding, you need to be getting to the point of trying to be considering that. And so that window, even though the Ancestral and the Cleansing is going to be there, it's going to be such a small one that more often than not, I think the target will die, even if Collusion's playing flawlessly.
Let's see how it plays out indeed. Team Freedom taking on HeroesHearth. HeroesHearth, one game away. One win in a game will clinch their spot to BlizzCon, but Team Freedom, the team on the left in blue, will have Collusion on that support on the Rhaegar. Lutano, the stud on the back line. He'll be on Hanzo. We'll have Nasmus on Yrel. Yoda onto the Phoenix, and Zugrug on Anubarak.
And in red here, HeroesHearth Esports, the top of North America. One game away from qualifying for BlizzCon. It is BBJ on the white main. Ishbu is going to be the Johanna. We got McIntyre on his legendary Dahaka. Homicidal playing the Greymane for the squad. And Crowan, in fact, will be our Tyrande.
So no cleanse, or the soft cleanse option for Tyrande, given the double stun capabilities of a Nubarak. But instead, spell armor to try and deal with some of that will be coming in. Keep an eye on that, see if it's needed. Whitemane does have the Intercession at level 7, her version of a cleanse. So you have one version of it, as Hami will be on the ranged role. He's on the Greymane. That was the question on where would we see that, because Crowan, most notably on that Tyrande Dreadnought, and we got the introductions, but I don't think that's what I was expecting. But with the sub in for this week, experimentation in process.
Yeah, and even though I do think you are right in the fact that part of this is, you know, with Homicidal in here questioning the comfortability, I actually kind of like it. Even though it doesn't have the kill potential of the heroes we normally like to see Crowan on, it does demand the precision and teamwork that more often than not, Crowan's heroes, you know, have that impact, whether it be, you know, the Li Ming or the Hanzo, things of the like there. Having him have that follow-up towards things like Ishbu with a Condemn, I feel like might be a big standout moment here for HeroesHearth Esports.
The key word, heroes that Crowan can get kills on. Here's a fun stat for those of you that are Crowan fans. You have a lot of reason to be. He sits at #1 in North America in kills per game at 3.4 kills per game. Dreadnought, that puts him at #2 in the world, only small percentage points behind Hoyt on Dignitas. That's how lethal Crowan can be in his role. So I'm glad you pointed that out. Crowan is a monster on this roster. So him on Tyrande, kill opportunities probably not as often as you would be on a Greymane, but playing the role that is necessary.
We also still see the adjustment of the double support build there from the white main, going with the double pickup into the W spec there. This has been really able to help out when it comes to the use there of her heal, coming out from her Q, having the opportunity to use 3 of them, and then use that level 4 talent to rid of some of the mana problems that you're going to endure during that time. The desperation really falls off here, and I like it in a double support setup. I actually am starting to wonder now, even in maybe a single support setup, whether or not this should be the go-to here on white main.
Both teams, Kron's like, I got this out. I can see you're over there. Collusion, level 7, has an opportunity for Farsight. Highly unlikely he picks that.
But what we did get in this game is actually the True Shot Aura pickup at 4.
It gives Kron more basic attack damage himself. When you pop that around your allies, it gives them basic attack damage and the reset on your mark. So a utility tool, but it does allow Kron to do more individual damage as well.
The guy who's really going to be liking that, though, is Homicidal. He's got to be very thankful that he got himself bonus percentile damage out of his attack speed, or excuse me, out of his attack damage. You get that mixed with the Worgen form, you're going to be feeling good.
5 solid seconds of it.
Shots coming through. A trade here for HeroesHearth and Team Freedom. Team Freedom willing to back off that middle shrine. They actually showed they're making this rotation, though, even though they have the information advantage because nobody continued the channel through mid. Small shot advantage here for HeroesHearth on the top half, but when the shots are all said and done, it's almost dead even.
Ishbu will wait on his iron skin. Zugrug says, I could try and CC him, but I know how skilled you are on the other side. Game recognized game in that situation. As Ishbu, he'll come in, try and get the clear. This is where Johanna works so well in the wave clear department. Iron Skin used to walk away as Team Freedom starting to chip away at this top wall.
And though it wasn't a major play there, I think it's very important to highlight Krone's Lunar Flare use. I've been showing some of the Tyrandas we've gotten so far. I think we can see moments of insecurity on some of the Tyranda players, but that was a follow-up to a Condemn. A little bit late, I think a small fraction. I'm nitpicking here when I say that. And it's one of the harder setups to the Condemn, or to the Lunar Flare is the Condemn, because it's directionally where they're located relative to the Johanna. If you get a micro adjustment, not as good there. But if that continues through this game, you're going to see Johanna enable multiple man Lunar Flares, which is not something you normally say when looking at Johanna. That's why you expect things like the Anub, the Murden, the ETC to come through.
The healing and the damage coming out. Team Freedom has found ways, even though we saw Dahaka stay in that bottom lane during that last objective. Team Freedom has found ways to get smaller advantages elsewhere on the map by getting some structures, starting to take down. Zugrug and team will move forward and walk away as Lutano finishes his level 1. Mentioned number 1 in kills per game in North America. Conveniently enough, Lutano on the other side, number 2. So we got 2 of the very best ranged assassins in this game and in this matchup.
There's a really nice drag out there from McIntyre. Another one of those, not going to gain you much here, but showing the micro and skill capability. Probably one of my favorite heroes to be able to watch McIntyre on. Even though we always have continuous high praise of Goku as an individual offlaner, I do think that I'd be willing to say I might put McIntyre as the best Dahaka we have in North America. It's a nice interrupt there from Zugrug as we got ourselves a bottom temple.
With the experience advantage in favor of Team Freedom, they are rounding level 10, so HeroesHearth will have to take a cautious approach to the next few moments. Should likely pick up 10 before the channel is complete, have Dahaka top lane, and when we see that, the Anubrak will stay on point, has the mobility to burrow under, which we could just see on the minimap. He burrows away, understands the threat of 10 in the global on the side of HeroesHearth. Team Freedom willing to concede the last few shots as they're going to trade up in the mid lane. Ishbu trying to walk away. Once the escort goes down, they still have chase potential, but that is a Johanna, so hard to do.
And now that we got the 10s picked up, we actually see it's going to be going for the throw. This is it's an interesting choice here because I was talking about how much everybody becomes a kill potential when you have Tyrande, but then you add the Cursed Bullet, it gets that much easier. But the tankiest target on the opponent's side is the Yrel, and Nubarak is actually pretty vulnerable originally. So I actually don't mind that we get that because now you have Rhaegar very likely to go down with that combo with the go for the throw, even more so than the Cursed Bullet. Same with Hanzo, same with Phoenix. The only target that I think you look at this and you go, I might have rather the Cursed Bullet is only the Yrel. And is she going to be the Condemn combo? Most likely not.
This is a great play. We've seen Team Freedom do this before. Urel is trying to keep Greymane from being able to back out. Ishbu is holding the point. See how long he's willing to stay here. Is Greymane nowhere near, but Tyrande and Whitemane coming in. There's going to be the isolation. There's the follow-up. Anubarak, you mentioned he's squishy, but there's going to be the Ancestral able to keep him alive. The Salvo out in return. The battle continues, but there goes Hami.
Yeah, they dropped the Homicidal there, going for the throw, finding two of them. Martin Defender is going to be there. Interrupt onto the lead for a second. Nasmus finally able to make it over the wall. And Jayhao, actually, there was a very big, important misstep on the side of Team Freedom, but capitalized heavily by HeroesHearth Esports. And it was the damage dealers being comfortable stacking within that shrub. Normally you'd be like, that is not an okay thing because having that many squishies together equals to a very easy kill potential. But it actually was even worse than that. It set Ishbu up for the easiest blind of his life. Back-to-back ease through that choke, hitting everybody, mitigating all damage output from HeroesHearth Esports, or from Team Freedom.
They're going to go ahead and leash that. 13 nearby. Urel went Divine Steed. I'm not saying that was the breaking point of whether they made the decision on that, but it does allow for a faster rotation in case Dahaka was forced to come down. Had that boss been taken down a little further, a little quicker, maybe that's a different decision, but for HeroesHearth, make a good, cautious approach. They just took a win in that last fight. Still have some catching up to do in terms of structures, but are finding their way back in. Without that 13 talent tier now, they'll have to take a very disciplined approach to how aggressive they be, at least for the next 30 seconds.
Ishbu left alone, forced to use the Blessed Shield. No mana. We get Rush Lock coming in from McIntyre. Isolation's not going to connect there. Whitemane Cocoon reveal. BBJ's made it out just fine as the drag lands there by McIntyre. And teams go back to their sides here with these shrines.
Look at the rotation from Team Freedom, though. They're already rotating up to that camp. They tried to invade on that last camp last time. The minute multiple people show, HeroesHearth will have to back up here. Johanna will hold point, but this does force out a response, but it's not quick enough. Team Freedom made such a quick rotation that they're already coming in, getting damage in before the camp already gets there. So Team Freedom continuing to make the plays, Dreadnought.
They are continuing, but HeroesHearth Esports trying to get some kind of punishment there with that Starfall opportunity. Get rid of some of the minions while Ishbu finishing up that bottom shrine. The structural advantage heavily in favor of Team Freedom, and the experience, as we said, Ishbu actually going to possibly get caught out. Not getting the dismount opportunity there yet. Whitemane and friends making their way down. HeroesHearth is going to fight over these bottom shots. They don't want to give it up for free. Can Nasmus now make it out as he's getting collapsed on?
Maybe it was the old debate. Oh, that's one way to make sure that you can't burrow out, but Dragon Zero used as well. Krone will come over. Should have enough heals to keep McIntyre alive.
Joe, that was a very big miscommunication there. One of the first things that you always keep as a rule when you play a Anubarak, never cocoon the kill target, because you only buy time for your opponent. You don't have the opportunity to break it out, only your opponents do. But even more so considering they needed to interrupt the rush talk to make that play worth it within that investment, but double stacking their hooks and getting a cocoon out there.
The Dragon Arrow's enough there.
Yeah, something had to clean it up here, and whether it be, that, I think that's to each their own. Whoever in comms, is the one saying, I've got the cooldowns, they need to be talking it out. But it's a big setback here, as now HeroesHearth have a big advantage to force a fight without heroics up.
Plus shields available. See where and if Dahaka comes in. He's going to come in from the left side. Keep an eye on that. See if he can land a drag, land some type of isolation.
Ooh.
Does miss the isolation. Now they're trying to get their target. Zugrug walking away. Cleanse used as Nasmus comes in, gives him the stick and tells him to go back to your yard. This is ours.
And they're going to have that 16 round out. Unlikely to get the boss play here as you see them kind of sharking around for a moment. Nasmus eating that Sentinel, so no information available for HeroesHearth. But the skill, not the skill, but the experience difference is big enough that there is that kind of cheeky, maybe they might backdoor, especially having Hanzo with the triple scatter arrow built.
With Sky Temple here, Dreadnought, one of the things that we highlight so much about Team Freedom is their ability to just rotate around and get chip damage, chip damage, chip damage. And on every other map, there's an objective that can potentially say, well, that's nice, but this objective, you didn't win it, so you can't get anything else. On Sky Temple, would you say that this probably is the most effective way for Team Freedom? It's like no matter where you get chip damage, the objective will just compound that issue even more than probably any other objective.
Yeah, other than Blackheart's Bay maybe, but that doesn't count, right? I think that's the best way to look at it. Considering the HGC competitive map pool, yeah, the Battleground does focus from the outside in, if you will, when it comes to structures, and therefore the chip damage is going to be able to outweigh that even that much more. I would say that I think that can exist in some other battlegrounds, but one of the biggest differences from Sky also is that there's not big enough mercenaries outside of the boss itself to get a major power play out of maybe a double giant stack on bottom, but that's a pretty rare play, and along with the Night Thresh pressure towards top. Talking about the mercenary threat, and this is it here. They're going to start the boss trying to demand a response out from Team Freedom, out of the top half of the battleground, but Team Freedom doesn't show any interest. They're going to give up this boss and say, we get your keep, you don't get as much. HeroesHearth is going to all in past this boss, Jay. How the minute they get that bottom keep wall, I expect them to look for kills and try to stack out and end this game right now.
For Team Freedom, though, they have Hanzo that did go full W build, and then this choke point does have the potential to rip through. He also has the Pierce at 16, so fighting on this in this choke point is the one thing I think Team Freedom has. With Lutano, look for him to try and go, but this might be a base race. They feign this, it will force the back. I don't think they're actually looking to commit.
Ooh, they committed 3. That was a lot of commitment there. So one actually very important thing to talk about here, Jay, is we saw the back channels attempted. Another important element that a lot of people don't highlight is you actually want to stagger those too, so that you never have exactly what just happened. A 3-man commitment to a feigned backdoor. One person shows up, I guarantee a Nubarak runs back thinking, yes, mission accomplished, I got somebody. But there was 3 people behind that. He doesn't know that information quite yet. And definitely a huge win for Team Freedom when it comes to the rotations. HeroesHearth, you know, kind of biting the bait, if you will.
The fun thing about that is that Zugrug moved into position to get as much vision as he can. But the thing that he does there that a lot of people, it's a small thing. It's a relatively small thing. But he stays mounted. He walks away from the minion wave where the core prioritizes and does splash damage and can dismount you. So not only does he walk away, but he waits to enter that circle and then tries to get as much vision as possible. It's small things like that that are very obvious to a lot of players. But I think there's a large player base out there that those small things right there just further emphasize how good our players are. That's easy for them, but I think it's just a small fun thing.
Yeah, we do see a big root combo coming in there for a moment out from HeroesHearth Esports for a second, but not enough punishment here to get too much threat onto Zugrug. That's not something I expected to see as this game moved on, with having the Duranda composition, but also only having the Gray Man and not having the Cursed Bullet. When they commit, they have to all in. There's no that, hey, can we throw out a combo, throw the Cursed Bullet, and be like, wow, that looks really good. Yes, get the follow-up, get the one-shot. 20 seconds out from the next Shrine phase, and HeroesHearth feels the pressure here as they move up, get free chip damage onto the fort, but they're down a keep. They need more than this to recover into this game, and it's going to have to happen over this Shrine phase. Otherwise, Freedom win experience, win the race to 20, and they're already winning structurally.
Yeah, and when you have that 20-tier advantage, by the time we get near the Temple phase, if it lasts to the next one, Hanzo has that race potential with that scatter arrow build. And definitely HeroesHearth has to make plays, has to make something happen. They have the global. They could have rotated Dahaka down to start the channel on the bottom and then come up, but Dahaka's coming in now, Dread.
Yeah, they got the Blessed Shield. Isolation is going to be used and actually lands onto the Rhaegar. No drag coming out quite yet. 4-man Dragon Arrow, 4-man Salvo is Whitemane just now going to get a be revealed here as Yrel gets the mount up. Nasmus able to make it out. Homicidal disengages over. Giants are going to meet the key front wall of bottom, but it's not going to be too threatening there for Freedom, as all they want is shots. They got a nice percentage of those top shots. They will be able to pick up a majority of those down below, securing a minimum, well, I guess not a minimum of 1 keep, but definitely a lot of it there. I was going to say minimum of mid keep, but technically these shots are going to hit bot first.
They'll get vision. HeroesHearth could conceivably contest. Yrel's going to see who holds here. Nasmus will find the rest of HeroesHearth rotating over. Ishbu 10 seconds away before he has. That's a nice slow. He went to level 13 top for the slow, but not enough members to make up ground. Somebody has to deal with that siege camp on the bottom right for HeroesHearth, Dreadnought, because that will just empower those bottom shots to potentially take a keep.
Looks like McIntyre is the man committed towards that rotation. Illusion did show himself on the bottom half of the battleground along with Phoenix. I wonder if that would be HeroesHearth opportunity to maybe go for kind of a brushstock 2-man invade. The question is somebody isolated over bottom, especially with that much information available over the stance of Freedom. But HeroesHearth more concerned with the race to 20, and understandably so here.
50 seconds away from that boss. HeroesHearth will have enough time to contest it, so Team Freedom won't have that as a possible win condition. But HeroesHearth only half of a keep left for them. Team Freedom in charge as they'll march down this top lane, continue to threaten out against HeroesHearth. They can only show so much in that bot lane. They're trying to find anybody in rotation. Worried about the feigned backdoor again here for Team Freedom.
At least have McIntyre back this time. That's a very big difference. He can move out and scout for free, make the threat of the backdoor a little bit less intimidating. As you see that Sentinel thrown out by Crowan, gets the scout over 3.
It's always tricky with the Sentinel because you're getting vision, but you're also saying, here's where I am.
Yeah, unless it's thrown from the Hall of Storms, it does give away quite a bit here. Zelgrug and friends move up for another. I'm going to say this is Fane, but this one could threaten lethal. If
but they just showed Hanzo. They just showed Hanzo here. And I think the play was to see if you could get them to back and then just burst this down with a Hanzo.
They know Nasmus is on an island now. They're Sephiroths. They got the dismount right towards this middle keep.
Wow.
Ishbu's not going to go ahead and start the boss, so now it's a full retreat. Team Freedom constantly splitting around HeroesHearth Esports, and they are just chasing Freedom, unable to find anything. Now we're 25 seconds out. No keeps, no structures available, and Hanzo opportunity towards the boss that Freedom would like. This is it for HeroesHearth Esports. They need to stop all 3 of these objectives, otherwise it's going to be game. And they have the same talent here. Boss has been started. Will the Owl scout it?
They've got to send something down there. Hanzo ripping this apart. That thing is falling rapidly. The Owl does not go there. It's game. It's over.
That's it.
There's no defensible way. The temple already started at the top. You cannot deal with all lanes plus the boss at the same time. I don't want to say it's impossible, but it's pretty dang near impossible right now.
Yeah, it's a very grim situation. As you see, that boss being dealt with, but the core already falling 65%. Top shots. Anubarak has 0 threat whatsoever here. It is just delay the rotation, stall out HeroesHearth Esports, and Team Freedom here in quite convincing and dominant fashion. Though the kills aren't there, the control very much was. Take game #1 over HeroesHearth Esports.
This is what we know from Team Freedom. The chip damage that they got set up everything that they wanted throughout the entire game. They took a different approach. We saw the top priority for HeroesHearth. They were unable to get that fort down with that top push. But what Team Freedom did on the rest of the map further escalated that. They had that 10 spike, that backdoor with the camp multiple times in that top lane. Clear advantages to Team Freedom. HeroesHearth, this is Team Freedom's map choice. This is the way that they play, and a map that complements that style. HeroesHearth, they tried the double support, were unable to close the gap, get the kills necessary to get themselves back in the game. Team Freedom, Sky Temple, play around the map. It's what they do.
One thing that we probably should note when looking towards some of the double support, though, I don't necessarily think that game from beginning to end was the greatest performance on the side of HeroesHearth Esports. I think there was definitely communication bumps and bruises, but it's double support on Sky Temple. In theory, it actually works really good. You're like, the objective means a lot, and it shoots a lot into the structure. So if I win a fight around that objective for long periods of time, it is going to be really neat. But then you fail to realize that your chip damage setback is not worth typically the advantage that you gain over the shrine itself. And it's actually the first battleground that I would straight up just be like, in most cases, unless your ranged assassins have really good siege to make up for that chip damage, you're going to suffer there. And there wasn't enough laning mismatch between the Dahaka and to the Ural. So I'm trying to highlight that I think that not only was Team Freedom doing what they do on a map that they're very comfortable, but also double support approach on Sky is always a hard thing to make work.
Well, it was their attempt. There's a lot more to be had from this series, and we'll see if HeroesHearth wants to take Battleground choice, whether they still want first pick. They have a lot of tricks up their sleeve. Double support, Sky Temple. When you give up one, you're going to get in another. That's where or double support always has that trade-off. It's like, look, we've got one thing, but you give up another. And you talk about wave clear a lot against certain compositions when sometimes we see the all-in aggression like we did from a team like No Tomorrow. They didn't have much wave clear, and it was that Cursed Hollow game. They said, it still works. As long as we execute it, Team Freedom just does something to teams where it's like, that's nice. We understand what your comp does. We're still a pretty good team. We can play around it. And they have so many strengths and so much knowledge about how they want to play their style that they can avoid a lot of that and avoid the pitfalls that other teams might fall into. And that's what makes Team Freedom a serious threat to be a contender for that second BlizzCon spot.
And it's going to be interesting to see if that continues as this series kind of continues through, because mainly Team Freedom on Sky Temple, that's a battleground and a playstyle. Not only that they're very comfortable, but it helps support that a lot. Maps where it hasn't been as successful is like Infernal Shrines, though it is probably the next go-to for that playstyle. So I suddenly wonder, yeah, maybe on Infernal Shrines, does it, number one, look as good as it just did on Sky Temple? And then once you get those out of the way, do we still have more in the bank there for Team Freedom?
And that was the cool part, is the Heroes Hearth. They've done so much studying. Everybody knows that's where they've been going as of late. That was the map ban for Heroes Hearth. And so now, what's next for Team Freedom? And if you have more tricks, have you been developing that? Because what we've seen is kind of rehashing a lot of their old strategies, trying to come up with new ways. They got aggressive with their Muradin style comps, fell back, come back in, go heavy on the macro, and dominate teams. So there's back and forth there.